It's time for the View in Your Mirror podcast. I'm Katie Harms, and along with Lisa Rubin, we help you check in and curate the best possible you and the best view in your mirror. We share tips, tricks, and strategies from our 35 plus years in our respective industries. We talk about your day from morning to night and everything in between. We share our uniqueness, relish in our shared experiences. Along the way, we share conversation with fabulous people who give us their own thought-provoking insights. So come along as we help you hone the best view in your mirror. Good morning, Lisa Rubin.
Good morning, Katie Harms.
I feel a little somber is not the right word, but we're going to be talking about some really important things in an area that we've not talked about, and that is aging and caregiving. We've talked about aging before, but really caregiving. You are fortunate to have all four, you and your husband have all four of your parents.
Yes, we do. It's a blessing and crazy and lucky.
Yeah, it's very fortunate.
It can be very, very difficult now to navigate in so many different areas that you never think about until it happens.
Right. And I think about all of my friends, and I can tell you, I mean, as we were starting this conversation, I thought about all the people I know that are in the sandwich generation. Their kids are still very much dependent on them, or, just out of college or just starting out, and they are caring for aging parents. And different states of aging, right? You don't know what kind of health people are going to have ahead of you. I mean, we all want to just wake up one day in heaven, right? Or wherever into the great beyond. But there are health issues and many, many areas that take us all down different paths that we never thought we'd go down.
I agree. And I think that how we navigate them has become even more difficult due to technology today. And my parents and my husband's parents, yeah, they have a cell phone. They know how to text, maybe email. But when you're trying to make appointments and you're trying to get to people and you want answers, they are not from a generation that is expecting an email to tell them something. They want a phone call. They want to talk to their doctor. They want to see their doctor in person. And sometimes they can't get to the doctor because they don't feel well enough to get to the doctor. And it just becomes so complicated and frustrating. And then what becomes your role in helping them, right? Because if you have parents that have always been independent and all of a sudden they need you for that, they don't know how to navigate that either. And I have been going through that.
Mm-hmm.
And it can get very hard and frustrating. And you have one way of thinking about it and they have another.
Mm-hmm. And as do your family members that are helping you in that caregiving process, right? Because...
Or not helping.
Or, right. And how...
Or thinking that you are going to get help. And then they're like, not doing what you want them to do. And then it becomes, what is your role in the family? And I haven't done that in a while. And I mean, we can go on and on and on,
mm-hmm.
right? And it's something that people know and have been involved in, but they don't really talk about it unless you get somebody and you get to lunch. And, I've talked to some people that have gone through what I'm going through now. Maybe they're 10 years older than me. Mm-hmm. And they've given me some good advice, but it's only from their experience, right? So I think these are all things that if you're, I guess, fortunate and lucky enough to be able to have parents that you can care for, we all will go through it.
So true. So true. Lisa, we have a very special guest today.
Yes, we have Paurvi Bhatt. And Paurvi is a healthcare executive, trusted strategist, and global thought leader with a reputation for marshaling funds, achieving focused outcomes, and leading innovative partnership strategies that bring healthcare and bereavement solutions closer to home for aging populations, their families, and caregivers. As President and Chief Impact Officer of the Rosalind Carter Institute for Caregivers, and as a founder and CEO of Third Eye Focus, Paurvi leverages her executive experiences at Abbott, Levi Strauss, Medtronic, CARE, and USAID and USGAO in influencing, advising, and collaborating with founders. We are so excited to welcome her on. And we would like to welcome Paurvi Bhatt on our podcast today. I'm so excited.
Hi, it's great to see everyone.
It's so nice to meet you. Zoom, in the new world of Zoom meeting. And, you know, I love how you two came together, because Lisa always talks about how, as women, and really I think as people, we all think the same things. We're all, whether we express them or not. But you had come through some very personal trials. Your whole life shifted. And you spent a lot of time donating your time, but dedicated to your family and your parents. And through the loss of your parents and then coming back and reemerging, you were connected with Lisa.
Mm-hmm. I was. At the time, I didn't realize all of that was going on. I think someone had introduced me to Lisa, just hearing what I was going through, a good friend. And what was really happening was a lot of the things that I'd spent my time on, whether it be career or my personal life, did hit a natural point of closure. And it was time for me to think through, now what do I do? And just in a quick introduction of myself, I'm a second generation Indian immigrant. My father came in the early 60s by boat. He and my mom met in India. 2 weeks after they met, they got married. 2 months later, he boarded that boat to come here, and it took him 3 weeks to finally get here. He came in steerage. It took him 2 years to afford to bring my mom here. And I came a year after, and our family began. And that journey, I think, is where our closeness as a family began. And so that dedication is actually something that many of us who come from all parts of the world, including people who've been here for many, many years, generations before us, we had extended families. We were always this interconnected, right? And we took care of each other. And that started to emerge for us. My mom, unfortunately, had cervical cancer when I was 3. And that was our first kind of moment of realizing that we had to figure out a lot of things here in the US, and especially for my father, who was just getting his career going. And in that time, most of our community around us, their family, our family, were still in India. So we had our family of love around us, who were also recent immigrants from India in the Chicagoland area at that time. And so my aunties and uncles, who are still my parents today, even more so now that my parents are gone, that sense of having comfort with your elders that never goes. And they took care of me. I learned how to read because an auntie in the hospital waiting room taught me how to read the headlines or the magazine, big print, to help me figure out how to read, because I was 3 years old, and that's where I was spending my time. And my dad was taking care of me as a male caregiver, and I spend my time on caregiving now. There's a lot of full circle moments of how this all began and where we are today with the issues that I focus on, caregiving and bereavement and immigrants, and how to make sure that the cultural aspects of care are what we're considering, and noting that whenever we go in anyone's household, how Lisa and I met. She came into my home to help me figure out how to reintroduce myself as me, not as the head of this organization or that organization, or the daughter of this, or, the friend of that, but just as me. And after 30 years of actually being very successful at morphing myself to be somebody, a vision of somebody else, it was a really impactful time. But in order for her to be effective with me in my home, it required understanding that you stepped into somebody else's culture. And we all, by definition, when you open up and you go into someone else's home, you are by definition in their culture, no matter where you are in the world. it's not yours, it's their home. And so it takes a very special person and perspective. And I'm forever thankful for her in helping to bridge that gap on her part quickly so that I could come and be more myself because she could see that. And we need more of that, not less of that now.
So many people call Lisa their secret weapon. And I love that you shared that because
That's really beautiful. Thank you.
yeah. And you've gotten Lisa a little bit teary, which is
it doesn't happen very often.
Lovely. And to be able to sit in that compliment, Lisa,
and I don't say thank you very often either. So you nailed all of the things I don't do very often, but thank you.
Oh,
I think too, you're talking about the essence, right? It's your essence of who you are because you were known as so many things. You've had a really big career and you've dedicated to helping in so many ways, but then you could take that all and put that into now what I think is probably your most important work.
It is my most important work. Thanks for seeing it that way. I haven't even quite had time to think about it. And what I do want to say, though, is so much ended all at once that it was confusing at that time. And it's taken me a bit to find my footing and all of these things that I've been slowly investing in myself or through hearing, people have said to me things that I just said to Lisa along the way, but I didn't absorb all of that, right? I still have a hard time absorbing all of that. I think many of us feel like, did it matter? All of the things, right? And gosh, I hope we take the time to say it more and look at each other more. The part of Zoom that people skip over quickly and shouldn't is we've never shared more eye contact with each other than now. We dismiss so much, but we look each other in the eye and say these things. And sometimes it's easier to say these things because of the 2D versus 3D moment that allows you to say some of this. But the part that brings the 3D back, that experience back, is because we look each other in the eye when we do. And so I just want to bring all of that back in. And yes, now this is an important time. And I learned a lot from all of the other times. But so many people are trying to reimagine who they can be. And it's not just because they retired or just because some other external thing brought them there. I think people are finding courage to reimagine who they can be now. And that is amazing. And yet I think what many of us are trying to make sure that we haven't lost sense of what we were or did, or being honored for what we did do too, right? Like bringing all of that together. And I think it's important to remember that too. It's yes, a lot was done in the past, but I learned a lot from the time that I worked in the HIV movement and era, and I was learning. I was an ally in that. I'm not HIV positive myself. And why today feels different is that I'm the one that is affected by being a caregiver and grieving now. And then I learned a lot in my 20s, all the way through my 50s, about what it feels like when you need care and you can't get it, when you're taking care of someone who needs care and they can't get it, when you have to interrupt school or work because a parent can't earn money because they need care. These were the early days of HIV in other parts of the world, and I was part of that. And it's only recently, as I'm reflecting on things, going, gosh, in my 20s, I was exposed to all of this. My mom was a caregiver. My grandmother was a caregiver. They interrupted their path, whatever that was for them, whether it's education or childhood, all of the things. And that has been happening globally in the pandemics that we're in. That happened in COVID, people coming home to take care of things, people rushing to find their elders and bring them home because of the fear that we had. And the upside of all of that is that we had to find togetherness in it and say what needed to be said and spend that time together. And so I just hope that we pause on that now and not work so fast to separate again. We're in the middle of a social isolation and loneliness pandemic at the same time. So, how to figure all of this out is where I'm spending my time now. And even that example with Lisa coming in to help me figure out how to be me now, whether it be in my home with my wardrobe, how to find confidence again. Those are all very, very real things. And that helped me find my own home again, right? And live for myself and find my own sense of creativity. She wasn't the only one. I invested in leadership coaches at the time as well. When the bottom fell out after a few months after my mom's passing, and after I really decided, okay, it's time to move on in the next stage of my career. And it felt like, oh my gosh, but I have another job waiting. I haven't done any of that. It was a crisis moment. And my leadership coach was amazing at that time and said, you know what? Let's go back to our intake question, the first one. And I said, I don't even remember what that was. And she said, that question I asked was, what would you do with unlimited time? And I said, gosh, I don't know. What did I say? And she said, well, first, let me pause. You now have unlimited time. So let's how did you answer that question? And I said, I would want to be more involved in the arts, not just as an observer, but participating in them. And that I wanted to be near nature and experience nature more. Two things that anyone who knows me would have never guessed that I would have answered that. And so fast forward, quickly, I did those two things. She helped me. She said, this weekend, right now, go downtown and go to a show, go to a concert, do what you need to do, take your dog, get a hotel, do it. And in the end, what I did was I got an Airbnb, a house on a lake in Minnesota, so that I would be in nature. And I went by myself to go see Six at the Ordway in Minneapolis. And that shifted everything. That helped me decide I was going to winter back in California, where I used to work for Levi Strauss, and be in nature. So I'm in a rural area in Sonoma County for a couple of months now, and during the winter for as long as I'm able. We do it very, very modestly, but my dog and I do it, and with very good friends there who were there when my dad died, much as the friends in Minnesota were here for me when my mom did. And I bought a home on a lake and managed to figure that out. It took these things, these people who come and help once you are open to it, to say, well, now, and I've continued that process, all sorts of things that have helped me decide different things can happen now, including reimagining what my career can be or how to spend my time.
I think that's so critical too. What's so beautiful about that is you took that time for you. And that's one of the things as women, particularly, I think we gloss over really fast. Okay, we've got these obligations. We've got this. We've got this. You've had this beautiful opportunity to have this very strong career, to step away from it, to offer that caregiving, to see that through offering that caregiving, you had to set aside some of your own personal care, but then you came back to that personal care, trusted the resources of other people, and now you shifted into setting up resources so those who are going through what you went through with your parents do not have to do it in such an isolated way. Does that feel right?
It does to a certain extent. I mean, it sounds so great and planned for in the way that you're saying it. It was absolutely not. And anyone in my inner circle, including Lisa, who saw exactly where I was at in that moment, it was a mess, as life is. And I also have to add, I'm an only child who's, my father's early onset dementia began at 58 when I was 28. I'll be 58 now. So this year. So it's very present. And so, I was a caregiver for 30 years, and the trade-offs I made, like many of the decisions you make in your late 20s, I ultimately didn't partner. I didn't have children. And so I want to just put, the degrees of freedom in context, right? I had different things that were pulling on my time, and I have been a strong advocate of working daughters just as much as working mothers, and now working sons just as much as working fathers, because we don't have a pathway back for daughters when the caregiving part ends. And after you've worked so hard to be in leadership roles, traditionally when the working daughter time truly takes hold is when you're at a different stage of life and career. And the whole workplace has invested so much in you to finally get a seat that might be a leadership seat. And that's hard to let that go. And it's even harder to figure out how to come back. And when it's a mom, it's also hard. I'm not one, so I completely honor it. And all of the work that's gone into ensuring that all of us have what we have has been thought on the hard work of moms. but that's also 9 out of 10 a joyous path back. And there are many more people at that time, and you're at a different stage at that time. And we need the same focus and effort now at this time of life. Otherwise, we're not going to get to what everyone wants, which is parity in leadership for women, even more difficult if you're a woman of color, even more difficult if you're a child of an immigrant. So, I take the role that I play very, very seriously with as much humility as I can, but take the time to say it out loud because many can't and won't. And that part is a part of this. I have to say that in the backdrop because I wasn't just taking time for myself. Someone had to body blow me to help me see it's time to take time for myself. And there was a colleague of mine during the harder times of the pandemic, and when it was clear that things were wrapping up, who said, because I was not taking time off. And there's reasons for that. Now I can see them. But at that time, and none of them were work related. I had an amazing team and an amazing support system at work. It was not that. And it was of that support system that someone finally said, Paurvi, if you had children, how many would you have had? And I said, at least 2, because I'd never put somebody else through all of this. And she's like, okay, well, let's look at it this way. The merry-go-round is stopping here now, and the entire workforce owes you at least 2 maternity leaves. So take them.
Mm.
And that isn't what happened in the mechanics of it. But saying that, given that I've been a part of health equity and justice kind of work inside of people who couldn't get what they needed, finally, it helped me see that someone, one, fought for me and said that, saw it when I couldn't see it, said the right sentence to make me say like, oh, well, yeah, the next day I started. Next day I was able to say, all right, I need to do this. It wasn't about mom. It was about, look, this is due to me. And the next time I was finally able to really say something was a year ago when the state of Minnesota was debating and discussing paid leave. And AARP had heard about my story and asked me to testify. And I didn't know how to do that, which was ironic because I had testified at the national level many times because of HIV-related issues. But this one, it was my story, and I'd never done anything with that in mind. And I found my voice finally. So a lot of these things from that first conversation to help me to learn how to take leave. And I was blessed to have the opportunity to. Very few people get that opportunity to then having time with Lisa and many others to kind of see what should I do to get the confidence back, to have a voice, to be in California, to get the tap to say in Minnesota, we need you to say something, to come home from California and immediately be able to say something. And about paid leave, the very thing I didn't know how to take. And then to now know that legislation did pass is remarkable. And all of that comes from a lot of other people who can see things that you can't see and who might be able to have confidence you don't have in the moment, because it's a lot to expect all of us to do all of it when you're also heavy with the things that you're already doing and the people that you're already caring for and the grief that you carry. If you're in this part of caregiving, the grief that comes with it is real. The reason why I wasn't taking leave, now I can see it, is because I couldn't accept my mom was dying. So that meant all the meetings, all the things.
Yeah. And that's, they talk about it in every aspect, especially in mental health. We can't see things in ourselves sometimes that are so evidently there to others. So even the time that you were with the person who really sat you down and said that, what a gift that was. In the meantime, servant leadership has been the thread for you of everything you've done. I'm looking at your LinkedIn, Managing Director, Global Health and Well-Being. And that's what you're wanting to bring to people, is well-being. And it's hardest to see it in yourself.
Yeah. Isn't that the journey of women every day?
That's the journey of women every day. We're going to take a little break. And when we come back, I want to talk about how we participate in the aging process, looking at it a little bit ahead of maybe when it actually needs to be there. And I think by your conversation, by your beautiful words, by you sharing your story, you're giving people thoughts on how to do this. And then I want to talk about some real things that are available and out there for people as they're in the sandwich generation.
Sounds great.
We'll be right back. Okay, Lisa, talk to me about how it actually works to bring a client into Mira Couture in Chicago.
You would meet me. I'd already know ahead of time what we're looking for, and I will have pre-looked at fabric ideas. You walk in, we talk to them about what we're thinking about. Julie will write and make a drawing, find out exactly what you want, whether it's a blazer, whether it's a dress, whether it's a pair of pants, whether it's a coat, mother of bride, mother of the groom. Then we talk fabric, and then they start wrapping you in the fabrics to see what you really like. And the rest is history. It's done. They take care of it.
They take your measurements. So really, this doesn't have to be replicated in terms of a trip back because you've been measured. So if you ever want to order something else, you're set.
It happens all the time. Once a client, I can get them one time, then we just keep moving on with whatever their needs are. I help create it with Julie. They sign off on the design and we make it.
You know, it's interesting. We talk about in the home building process and all of that, the selections that are made, the money that is spent on these things with very little care and thought that goes into it. And yet here you have an opportunity to make such selections in your wardrobe in pieces that you will have for years and years and years. So you might spend a little bit more, but not as much as you would think, right?
Exactly. And the one thing I tell mother of the brides and mother of the grooms is if we have a dress that we're going to make long and you want to be able to cut it off and wear it to other people's weddings as a cocktail dress, all you're paying for then is an alteration. So it's like two dresses in one. So break that down. That makes sense. Custom scares people.
Sure.
And it shouldn't. It shouldn't. You can spend maybe a little bit more than you thought you were going to spend, but it is so well worth it if you know exactly what you want. And most women, if they have something special they're going to, in their head, they already have what they want. They just don't know how to communicate it. That's my job to figure that out. And Julie's really good at that too.
Experience the magic. Go to miracouture.com. We're back. And during the break, we had a little conversation that involved words that I'd never heard before and concepts that make so much sense to me. So talk about anticipatory grief and over-professionalizing this caregiving.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's a personal view. So I know there's so much discussion about this, but on anticipatory grief, and I'm learning as well, you know, it's exactly what the words say. It's that you're anticipating the loss to come. And as a result, you're doing a lot of things because of that anticipation, right? And when I came to learn about it, and it is part of the mental health space, it is a part of now the bereavement space that's certainly within mental health, but its own category as well, and the caregiving space, because when you're caregiving, especially if someone is ill, elderly, or disabled, there's a part of that element that is always trailing in the back of your mind. And for me, when I have been processing how things have unfolded in our family, I think for me, this anticipatory process began when my mom was originally met with her cancer diagnosis when I was very young. And that sets forth, and everyone has a story that's from their childhood that kind of sets up who we are today. And for me, that was part of it, and certainly amplified when I was 28. My dad had his dementia at 58. Where now these losses and the concern about a parent being gone was hardwired for me from a very young age. And that now as we're in this time where, you know, since the pandemic, but it isn't just because of the pandemic, it's also because of the demographics of what's happening in our population. We've got baby boomers who are aging, Gen X's that feel like they're ignored, but are also aging. And the younger generation, you know, coming into this very intense and stressful time of feeling like they're a sandwich generation. But my dad was a part of the sandwich generation. So this isn't the first time we've met a time when people in their working years are taking care of children while also taking care of their parents. That's been going on forever. It's now high volume time, and social media and everything is bringing it to our attention. So just want to say this is something over time. And the anticipatory grief piece affects stress. It affects how we show up at work. It affects how we show up with each other, and is an important term so that we can hang on to it. But bringing back your other point about my personal belief about over professionalizing what we are to each other in this time, which is being able to show that we care about each other, can become something that becomes a business before it becomes a culture. and can soften the things that actually need to be more codified and out in the open so that we have comfort in approaching them. So I've noticed recently being in more conference spaces and meetings that the terminology of a market, the terminology of a workforce, the terminology of, the words we use in business, which need to be applied. Of course, they need to be applied. At the end of the day, I'm a health executive. I'm trained in health economics and systems. I mean, yes, absolutely. And all parts of that need to be in this. But when we've overdone it, it gives us another place to hide instead of giving us a place to be together. And so now there's a compartmentalizing of, I'm not going to bring the caring part into this as much as I'm going to bring the economic part into this and talking about what we need to do. And that limits, I think, what we can do for each other. So the care and bereavement space is very much a cultural space. And certainly there are disciplines that can help us make sense of it. But while we're approaching that, especially at the scale that it's happening, we can't let it keep us apart from getting to know each other better and to spend time with each other. And now more than ever, I'm so much more committed to my neighborhood than I ever was before because of this. Because at the end of the day, I can analyze everything to death. I can advise, and I do. But at the end of the day, what matters most is my neighbor just came over and hauled away a bunch of weeds for me, because I will do the same for her, next week when she needs me. And we are doing that more now than we did before, because both of us have lost parents and are on our own and figuring it out. And there's going to be more and more single people, single women who are going to need care than we realize. And the structures we need to support each other come from this trusting approach of taking care of each other, in addition to insurance plans, in addition to paid leave, in addition to all of the other things that need to adjust for us. At the end of the day, this the clarion call that we're getting about loneliness and disconnection has to start with connection then. And that has to mean you have to get outside your house and get to know people again. So that's when we over professionalize, we're not doing that.
No. And the connection came from grief.
Yes.
So it occurs to me that really what we need to do is normalize grief.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yep. I agree. And normalize.
Maybe not normalize it, but because if you make something too normal, then some people remove the emotional piece of that.
That's a really good point.
I think that you need to be okay with saying, I am grieving.
Yes.
And there are cultures and religions that allow you to have that space for grieving. And I think the people that take the opportunity to use it, it helps them.
For sure.
The people that don't know from that, or don't have those resources, they don't know what to do about it, because you're just supposed to then move on. Well, these people are a part of you. Like, you have their DNA, So
I remember so vividly that my father was the first to pass. And after a year battle, not even a battle, it truly was a journey, because it was a mesothelioma, cancer caused from asbestos.
Oh,
so he chose to not do anything other than, live out his life and have conversations with family, and a lot of humor, and an incredible experience with hospice care. But I remember the day he died, walking outside, feeling just the seismic shift in myself, but nothing had changed. The cars were still going by on the freeway. The trees were still green. The birds were singing. The sun was shining. And I remember thinking to myself, but the whole world has changed.
Yeah. Yeah.
And learning how to be in that moment, right? And understand. And until you go through it.
Right.
But then, like everyone that I've known that has gone through grief, loss, health issues, most people I know want to keep somebody from going through the same amount of pain. Well, the certain amount of pain and grief is you're going to go through the pain and grief. So understanding it, navigating through it To me,
Yeah.
grief never ends. In my mind, grief never ends. It just takes different forms.
Well, what I've often thought, especially now, I mean, I'm starting my third year and I'm very open about it. How did I miss this when my parents were going through it?
Mm.
Everyone goes through it, right? And we are bearing witness to that. Whether someone says it out loud or not, we're bearing witness to people changing around us all the time. So I'm even reflecting back, like, wow, I totally missed that. And back to, move on and some of the things that people try to help you with in different cultures, approaching different stages of life in the way that they do. There is a sentiment of you need to move on that keeps coming up, and moving on doesn't mean forget. The whole conversation we had before the break was about moving on, right? And integrating and being able to find peace with what you need to do next. And at the very least, back to structures and things that help us, now finally we have workplaces that are looking at bereavement leave differently. No one can get over it in a day. It doesn't matter what culture you come from or what your traditions allow for you, right? Ours happens to be 13, 15 days and then a year, right? And we're not the only faith that has a long tail on what it takes. There's a reason for it. Our ancestors knew more than we would admit that this is going to take a while. And maybe my mom would say, maybe after 15 days, you're ready for people to leave your house. Maybe that's why the first phase was 15 days. Okay, we got it. And then you come back again in a few months, right? And that there's reasons, practical reasons, but it's nice to know now that there are policies and things in place that are starting to come into fruition that allow for longer leave, that allow for people to appreciate, something that a group that I've been working with called Empathy. They put out a cost of dying report, which is fantastic. Tough topic, but really bringing in, this is the one area that, yes, it is important to professionalize so that we can get the support. Because at the end of the day, you have to fight for that support, which needs professional guardrails around it. So they put numbers and things to it. But the one thing that really resonated was it made me think about who is the power of attorney and the executor that we tap in our family for ourselves, or if you were the one that was tapped. It's the person you trust the most. It's the person you think that will have an even hand and steadiness through a difficult time. It's the one that you think is going to hear the things that are not said, that will live out your intentions for you. And when you think about that person, they're likely the high performer at work. They're probably that same person everywhere. So imagine the strain that person has when they are now experiencing all of this in that role of executor or power of attorney, how much they're carrying when they're back at work. They're doing the same things, right? And it takes at least 2 years to go through just the mechanics of wrapping up a life. And that's the person that's doing that. And so back to seeing it, even though you're not saying it, it's being intentional to notice it in people. And to your point about how do we take care of each other in these times, and self-care, people are even like, gosh, that's another burden in this time. The word self only makes you feel more alone again. So how do people do it? Just like the examples of neighbors coming and helping, or, this year I seem to appreciate sound baths, people sending me, notices, hey, there's one happening in your area. I heard that you'd like this. So let's make sure that you get time for that. Figuring out ways to reach out so that people have seen that there are things that give you relief, and taking that burden away and doing it well before you're here in this time. I think this is the part of where AI can be helpful and where AI could be a problem. It can be helpful because when you've automated so much, that keeps me from talking to you. Right? So how do we get the right uses of AI in to help make it easier to find the information, but not easier for you to not stay connected to a person in the process? That's the trick in all of this, right? Is to make sure that you've gleaned the best possible information to help you be more efficient. But that last step of being connected should happen. It shouldn't, the efficiency of it isn't to keep you from being together. It's to make sure that when you're together, it's used in the best possible way. And so that's the part that even in the care work, right? Care work at home, hospital at home, everyone getting discharged quicker because we all want to be at home. Well, we know home isn't ready, right? Is your home ready? Mine isn't ready. If something were to happen today and I'm super connected, there's no one at home that's going to take care of me. I've got to get a lot of stuff in place for that to work well, right? That whole process, AI will help, but it's not going to replace for someone coming home and making sure I'm okay, coming home to make sure that I've taken the meds the way I need to take my meds, making sure that I can look at someone in the eye and know that I'm not alone. All of this is the next chapter of care, and why sometimes I do bring up, let's not let over professionalizing the area come up with solutions that aren't really going to be the ones. We're all fine in talking about a lot of things until you realize in the end, do I really want a robot to bathe my mom? No, I don't. So, I use that facetiously, but we know that we're going to have to come up with ways that allow us to find comfort in the discomfort of facing each other through these difficult times. And so even in providing help and providing care and being able to be there for each other in a compassionate way, all of these tools, we've just got to make sure that the final mile of it is still a connection with a human being that is demonstrating that they cared for you. And making sure that they're not wasting their time trying to find it all for you, and making sure that we're not diminishing that last mile was only 5 minutes. That's still really an important 5 minutes. This is going to be the test of us for our generation is, did we take care of each other or not? And how did we value that? And even during that debate and discussion of paid leave, I recall someone stating very openly that, boy, if we had to fight for Social Security and Medicare now for the first time, it would never pass. Not because of politics or the rest, but because there's something about the dignity of this chapter of life that in the end is what cleared the line, is their recollection of it, is that no matter what the numbers said, the final decision was, what is it the right thing to do for people in this chapter of life? And it was on that they moved forward. Our generation is going to have to wrestle with that, to say, what are the things that we're just going to on belief and values and faith that we're going to move forward on. And the data won't be the only thing that can make that decision. And we've got to come there. And that's, I think, why we're going to be judged by whether we cared for each other or not, because we have to make these decisions too.
Very true.
And so many questions. So practicality for those who are really going through the struggle, right? Those whose parents maybe are not seeing that they need the help yet, but that you're looking in on them, knowing that they clearly do need the help. Give us maybe 3 to 4 of your best resources, where to direct people to look.
Yeah. Are employed and have an employer that offers a suite of benefits, check those benefits, because there are likely some things in there that will help guide you through this. I had them. And I appreciate, had a very privileged position, but those are becoming more normalized. These caregiving supports, the employee assistance programs that are there. So don't ignore the things that do exist and trust them. So that's the first one in terms of resources, because they are usually paired with a human being that's going to help you, and one that you can fully trust in many ways. So I would say that for sure. On a practical side of just how time is used, it's hard, but to find a way of keeping an eye on the tactical things and the moments, which are different. So making sure, and I wish I had done more of this, I can admit that more now, that I was breezing in and out as a long distance caregiver for a while, and then living with my mom for 13 years, but hiding in my screen, of really not putting so much on the tasks that needed to be done versus the time that needed to be spent. So taking some time before things get very elevated to really wrestle with that a bit. And the question I had asked, which pushed me to move home, was, what would I regret more? Because I have a life in front of me and I don't want to have a lot of regrets. I will have some, but I don't want a lot. So those kinds of questions, which often come forward, are helpful. Other resources, certainly AARP there are many guides and resources on what to do as a caregiver, getting started early in financial planning, even in your 30s and 40s, making sure if your financial planner hasn't asked you the question, that you ask the question of yourself, Do I think I'm going to have to take care of someone as we get older? We're more comfortable thinking about saving for college for our kids or a retirement for ourselves than something else that is an unforeseen shock coming. So starting that process of really asking, because that is also starting to put that into your normal way of thinking. So when it comes, it will be an emotional time, as many things that you can kind of predict for, to try and do that and bring that into those normal moments when you would think about those things, when you're signing up for your benefits, when you're having that tax time conversation and putting that in play. An invaluable resources is Caring Bridge. So Caring Bridge is a nonprofit also based in Minnesota, founded in Minnesota, the first social media, basically over 25, nearly 30 years old. And many people have used it. For me and my family, I'll admit it was hard for me to start a Caring Bridge page, which is basically to take the friction out of getting the information out to families and friends who are trying to support you. But when you take a closer look and focus in on their mission, it's to make sure that no one goes through a health journey alone. And so when you know that is the mission and you see what we all need is to not feel alone, you optimize what that platform offers you. And it offers you the opportunity to not only share information about what's going on with your family, but to receive support in a very different way. And also to help with cultural things that people may not understand. So, and my final example on that is, in the final hour of my mom's passing, I needed to educate everyone quickly on what to do because they didn't know in our faith and culture what to do. And that allowed me to get the word out quickly. And I still have that page and I look at it often and I revisit it often. And I notice other people go back because of the questions I asked about Medicare Advantage. How do we get this done? All of that rests on those Caring Bridge pages. So that's a great resource as well. Absolutely. Of course, I'd be remiss if I didn't talk about the Rosalind Carter Institute for Caregivers. That's where
you're bringing us right there. That was the next thing, because we always have a nonprofit component to our podcast. And so, yes, tell us.
Yes. Well, I saved the best for last for a reason. Sadly, Mrs. Carter passed away late last year during National Caregiver Month, which is November. She had a vision and a mission that is almost 40 years old now, in really putting forward the importance of caregivers in our lives and families, and mental health as two big initiatives and efforts that needed focused attention. And that was such a long time ago that she kicked that into action. And fast forward today, these are the two big issues of our time. So she certainly knew just from her own experiences that this is what families are coping with. They're just not able to be seen. And a big part of her ethos is to make the unseen more seen. And so in every action. And so with that, the Rosalind Carter Institute for Caregivers has been in existence. It focuses very much on the expertise and the insight of family caregivers, uniquely family caregivers, those that are taking care of elders, ill and disabled, and what sacrifices are made, how to ensure that family caregivers have the supports they need, and that we're seeing things not only within healthcare, but outside of it. So one of the things, certainly in the workforce, which we talk about often, and if you back to what my first point of resources, your own workforce and what do they have, and to ask your manager and to do more. But more so if you're a small or medium-sized employer, that group, which we all know was the front line during the pandemic and is the front line every single day. Our economy rests on that. What do we do to make sure that as the population ages, that particular segment is set up so that people still have their jobs, are able to step away, that we can thrive? And there's a lot of work happening there. Also, work for disaster relief. Climate emergencies are happening everywhere. I couldn't believe that I didn't think of it for me and my mom, but we are in tornado alley here in Minnesota and wildfires here in California, and hurricane season is upon us. Making sure you have a plan for not just yourself. I put a sticker on the window for my dog, but never once did I think that my mom's oxygen can go when the electricity cuts. And if we faced a tornado, what would I do? I didn't plan for any of that. So that is a big part of what we focus on as well. President Carter, through an executive order, created FEMA. So that is where that alignment comes in as well. And then just noting that there's just so much that we can do for each other, even simple notes Mrs. Carter was known for sending a note to people. She would ask people at church and within her community, whoever they were, who's having a hard time. And she would take the time to write a personal note. And I've been blessed to have those notes sent to me. I didn't realize that's how that happened. And so now, to keep that going forward, I'll ask each of you to take a time to send a note to someone that you might think is taking care of someone and might not feel seen. It will change. It will be surprising how much that changes their life and your connection with them. And I certainly have sent flowers to all of my bosses who helped me out during the time that I needed to take leave or do something. I just did it over the holiday season this last year, and they thought they were forgotten and all that. What are you doing? What are you talking about? And but very specifically, why? So to take the time to do that is a big part of that as well. Her final wish. She had a long to-do list, but her final wish was to go national with what we're doing with caregivers and to create an Office of Caregiver Health. Because if we don't make this effort more efficient, it's just more work for a caregiver to take care of his or her family. And at the federal level, if we can create something that allows for all of these different agencies who are working so hard, from the VA to Medicare, Medicaid, to come together to make sure we can add it up to mean something, that will have been something really big that we could do in our time. So that is something that the RCI and the Institute are doing. So that there are resources all throughout our website there to visit as well.
Paurvi, it's rosalyncarter.org, correct?
Correct.
And Rosalind is ROSALYNN, Carter.org, for those who were uninformed like I was. This has been truly enlightening and beautiful in so many ways through grief. And we really send you our condolences on the losses that you have experienced, and also celebrate your servant leadership. The building blocks of your life have led you to where you are. And we talk about infrastructure and building a strong infrastructure. And you look at the people you're aligned with and are able to work with now, and the infrastructure that has come from the work that they've done, and that you're carrying that on. So bravo to you. Thank you. If people want to reach out to you, how best to do that?
LinkedIn is probably the best way to find me. That's the easiest way to find me. And we can certainly share that link as we go. And one other resource I want to make sure we don't forget is Reimagine. It's letsreimagine.org. The reason why is because of this focus on grief and conversations like the one we've been having, that they've been having across cultures for a long time. And our institute and they came together for an entire month of this kind of conversation. So I didn't want to leave without raising that resource as well, because it helps to see other people in these conversations too.
Absolutely. And that this beautiful, incredible background of knowledge within our workplaces too, to be able to hold space for grief and know that we can still do good work for the companies that we work for, and all that better work if we are able to hold the space for the grief. So thank you for taking this time, for sharing your beautiful self. Lisa, thank you for doing what you do and having these relationships that bring us the incredible Paurvi. I can't thank you enough.
Thank you.
Yeah, I think this is a podcast that people will listen to more than once.
No.
Because when they know they can have it in their back pocket, and if they start going through something, I think you have lent so many beautiful and necessary moments for someone to take and to help them to get through their day.
Thank you, Lisa. Well, you helped me, and both of you. This conversation has made it an easier day for me also. And frankly, the other side of grief is a lot of joy because this happens, right? And for as much as I said, "Wow, how did I miss it in my parents?" I think because this was happening, and that's what I saw more than the other parts. And so I just, want to just make sure that we see that there's joy in it, a different kind of joy, but joy in it also.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
There is just not one thing that I can say to add to that beautiful, really touching conversation.
No, I agree. Let's just keep it at listen, and you might have to listen more than once because everybody will be touched by something she talked about.
Absolutely. For more information on what we do, please go to theviewingyourmirror.com. We're on LinkedIn, we're on Instagram, we're on Facebook, and all the podcast platforms. Like us, rate us, share us with your friends. We appreciate all the comments, all the love, and know that we think you are terrific. And when you look in that mirror, know that you are the best you. Until next time.